We're looking at a 1988 Chevy Blazer. Now, 1988 doesn't seem like that long ago to me, but according to this truck, it's a pretty long time ago. You can see our dash is just totaled. Some of our vents here aren't working. Somebody put a bigger radio in. It's missing a handle thing here. So, you know, it's just old and tired and weathered. So what we're going to be doing today is trying to get that new car look and feel out of our cab here without dumping a ton of money in it. Now, I've got an unlimited amount of parts at my disposal, but today what our goal is how can we make this look as new as possible with spending the least amount of money possible? We're going to find out. Stay tuned. First thing I want to do is take out my seats. I know they've had it and we're going to have to take it to the upholstery shop and have them redo it. The foam and everything is just caved in and worn off, so we're going to have to get foam along with our upholstery, and that's why I'm taking it to the upholstery shop instead of doing it myself. When I get my seats out, I'll be able to just get to my dash and everything a lot easier, and I'll assess everything that I'm going to get. I'll get up my wish list and I'll order everything at once, because we don't want to get halfway through this and then find out we ain't got this, that, or the other. So let me get these seats out of here and then we'll see what we're going to do next. All right, one thing you're going to want to do is make sure you have a little magnetic tray like this to keep all your nuts and bolts in check. And you're going to want to get some Ziploc bags to keep them all in. It's going to make it a lot easier when you put it back together, and really to have them defined into each individual thing: seat belts, seats, a dash, etc., etc. The more specific this is, the easier it'll be for you. With all the seats out, you can see that the carpet was in really sad shape and how old and tired all of this looks. Now I'll kind of go ahead and assess what I want to get. I'm obviously going to need a radio and a dash pad. A lot of these little vents are messed up. Some I'll be able to fix and clean up maybe, but others are just straight up broken. I'll be taking the door panels off so I can clean them up and make them look real nice. So while I'm at it, I'll double check and make sure that the rubber in there, my window regulators, door regulators, all that kind of stuff is good or bad, and I'll get it all ordered at the same time. I'm going to start my list up. I'll be back in just a second and we'll start up on it. Now I'm going to go ahead and leave the carpet in right now. Your first inclination is probably to take it out. The problem is now your knees are on that hard metal. So we'll leave it in here to save our old knees, and we'll go ahead and take everything apart. And one of the last things we'll do is the carpet. When you're taking off your door panels here, you got to remember there's screws at the bottom. There's a couple of screws right here. There's a screw right here. And then there are the little clips are at the back. And when you take this off, this is kind of a drag. You got to pull it up. That's a little tough. So that's how that comes off, like that. If you have these electric windows, then you're going to want to pull these off right here, nice and gentle like. And we can see this stuff here is pretty ugly, but our window regulator and everything worked really well. You can see the door panel's already been off at one time, because normally these holes right here, they'll have tape over them, and that'll keep noise and such from coming through. So when we button this back up, we'll make sure that we do that next time, huh? Now, I've already got a video on how to replace your dash pad, so I'm not really going to get into this all that much. You got some 1/4-inch screws down here on the bottom. Of course, over the years, these could have been replaced with anything. You're going to need to take the instrument cluster bezel off in order to get it off. And a lot of those screws on there are very specific in size and length and things like that, so make sure they don't go anywhere. If they're missing, you can go ahead and order all the screw sets while you're ordering up everything else, so you're going to be ready to go. Now, underneath this, which is another reason why I'm taking it out, is that we don't have any air blowing through these anymore. The hoses, they just get old and tired and literally fall apart. So we'll be able to fix that at the same time. Another thing you want to check for is your glove box door. This is kind of a weird one. The other years, they actually have a physical metal hinge, but this hinge right here is just plastic. It's the same plastic that the box is made out of. So you're only going to open it and close it so many times before it breaks. You might just order one anyway to be on the safe side because they're not that expensive. It's gonna break sooner or later, and you might want to take care of it at the same time. I might take that off of there just so I can get to my vents better. You may not need to, but it's all the little different options you might have when you're working on this. Our pad is all ready to come out. We got all of our screws out. On this particular year, there's one on the side right here too, so don't forget that one. And when you're pulling it out, you're just gonna kind of do a little jiggle and lifting it back like this. The air line, the hoses might still be connected to the vents right here, so that's something you'll have to work on. And then another thing that you gotta watch out for is these clips right here. Do not just take this and throw it away. One, somebody might want to reuse it, reupholster it. Two, you gotta save these clips. They do not come with these new dash pads, so you'll have to take these off. When you take them off, well, let me get a little bit closer and I'll show you how. All right, you see this edge right here? This is going right into the notch there. It's got a little 90 degree that's hooking right in there. So what I want to do is just pry that back a little bit while I'm pushing this way, backwards. And you really want to be careful because you can damage these clips pretty easy. Now when you get it this far back, you can see that it's out of the little channel there, and we're back. Now what we're going to do is take this and turn it 90 degrees and it'll come off. And the reason for that is you can see this little clip right here, or this piece of the clip, and see how that is? So what happens is, in other words, to put these on, if you would, this little slot right here has to go into that little slot right there. You'd have to put it on like this, you'd have to 90 it, and then you'd have to pull it forward. So it comes off exactly the same way. Now this here is the vent that came out of the side right here on our dash pad. If this was up here, you can see that there was about a 6-inch gap between this and the plenum for the air conditioning, and it's just straight up gone. You can also notice that it's going to be a lot easier to work on this with the glove box off, so I do definitely recommend that. So I'm going to go ahead and take my instrument cluster out. Now, I don't necessarily need to because my gauge clusters, everything works, but I want to take it out because it'll be easier to clean, and I'm going to be putting some LED light bulbs in there. They take less electricity, they last longer, and they're a lot brighter. So it's kind of one of the common things I do on these. You're going to need to take off the 4 screws. There's a lot of screws up here, so don't get confused. It's just the ones that are on this plastic housing right here. You got one at the bottom, one at the top, you got one right over here, and you got one on the end here. Now this thing is old and they're plastic and they do break. This little ear broke off this side right here, so that's something you got to be prepared for, and you might want to get another one of these pieces for the back. They're relatively easy to get, and it's not that tough to rebuild your gauge cluster. I'll get into that a little bit more in a bit. You'll need to disconnect the speedometer cable though, and then you'll be able to go ahead and wiggle it out, and it kind of comes out this way. Let me get that disconnected and I'll pull it out. One last thing, there's a little thing right here. Now what this is this is for your gear selector. You see when I pull on this, the gear selector's moving, and this just slips on the end right here, and then when you shift gears, this one piece will move, and when we put this back together, we'll slip that back on, and you can just slip it on in different positions in order to get this in the right place. But I'll get to that in a bit. With the speedometer disconnected, it should make this easier to come out. It really tucks in here well. Yeah, there, so you want to come out on this side, and then you'll pull it this way, and then you're going to bring it forward just a little bit and disconnect the lines on the back. So I know you can't see it just yet. Let me get this out of here. These are really handy. Here's what your gauge cluster looks like when it comes out. Now, not all of them will be exactly the same, and yours may not have one or two of these little items, but I want you to be aware of all of them anyway. This is where this right here goes in. There's two tabs on the side. You're just going to squeeze those tabs in and then it should pull out. A lot of times you'll need to use one of those little plastic spatulas like you saw me use. This right here, this is a little light, and it has a little optic, a little fiber optic thing that goes to light up this right here, and you have to be careful on that and take it out. I want you to look and see what this looks like right here. So you see how fragile that is? So just be careful when you take this out. And the other thing you got to be careful about is this light right here, and then this right here. Now all the other ones, this pulls out, the big one, and these little ones twist out, just counterclockwise, quarter turn to pull out. But this one actually screws in with a little screw. So you have to be careful and take that screw out. That screw is really small and really easy to lose. So as soon as you take it out, screw it right back in again so you can find it later on. Now I got this here all set up. I'll get it cleaned up and looking good, ready to go back in. We'll get those lights, so stay tuned. So continuing on with the disassembly, we take off our seat belt here and we can pull our panel back. When we can see all kinds of ugly going on back here. This is just literally falling apart. Luckily we don't have any rat homes back here, but one of the things you can see is this here's an amplifier, and that was the backing place, but all the screws just came out a long time ago. Here you've got a large power line that could have shorted out really easy, and as long as it is, that could have caused us some trouble. You might also notice that when they put these wires in, they tucked them right up underneath this sharp edge right here. That's a real no-no right there, that is. So it's a good thing we got this thing set up before it burned down. We're all disassembled. I got my list out. I'm waiting for my parts to come in. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and clean everything up. Again, I've left my carpeting in there so I don't have to jab my knees into the metal. After we get it cleaned up, then we'll take out the carpet. Now, one of the things I like to start with is this magic eraser. All you got to do is just get a little bit of soap, put it in a little bit of water, get it a little bit wet, and then see how well it cleans. And then if this does not get it clean, then I'll move to something that's more aggressive. But you don't want to get too aggressive right off the bat, because when you're using things that are a bit more aggressive, like simple green, then it can take the shine off of your upholstery. It can dry it out, make it a little more brittle, won't last as long. So we're going to try to just clean everything up without getting too aggressive right off the bat using this guy. And you can see it's pretty effective on this stuff. So use this everywhere first. Then if we need to accelerate the situation, you got these sponges here, try the non-aggressive side first before you go with the aggressive side, because again it could do damage. You might want to get some carpet cleaning things for any areas that need it. You've got a little bit of soap for your water. We've got some upholstery cleaner. And then after everything gets cleaned on the upholstery, we want to use a little bit of detailer. So this is kind of like wax, if you will, for your upholstery. When you're doing all of the cleaners, it's drying it all out, and you're going to want to kind of wet it back up, so to speak, so it doesn't dry out and crack. Now, different things like this right here that have a bunch of little textures in them and such, and this is a little bit tougher right here, so this I could actually use some simple green on, and I can use my sponge here. I want to do it in circular motions so that I can get into all of the nooks and crannies, at least as much of a circular motion as I can for the size of the part. So just give me a second with this and I'll show you how well this cleans up. Now when you get a rag like this right here, what you want to do is take it and fold it into fours, okay? So we'll take it like this, fold it in half. We'll take that and we'll fold it in half. And then this one's actually big enough to where I can fold it again. Now the reason that we're doing this is if I was to just take the rag and it's just willy-nilly like this, now I'm getting the dirt over everywhere and I'm spreading it around more than I am cleaning off. But if you do this, now when you clean it off, you're only getting this one section dirty. Once this one section gets dirty, you flip over to the next clean section, then the next clean section, then the next clean section, so on and so forth, until you've used all of the rag and you're really efficient with it. And you're going to want to get some brushes and miscellaneous things like that for your like nooks and cranny things that might be dug in. So I'm going to go ahead and get all my little things cleaned up. I'm going to go ahead and climb up inside and start working on that too. Now, one of the first things I like to do is blow out all of the dust that gathers over the years. You can see that it's really thick on this, and what happens is that when I have to climb up underneath there to do the air ducts and stuff, you're going to have all that dust flying in your eyes. So go ahead and blow it all off now, and even though the dash pad covers this up, still clean it off. Do me a favor. Now you got to get your doors too. A lot of times there's a lot of dust and dirt in the doors too. You're going to want to vacuum those out or blow those out also. And so what we're going to do is we're going to get this little bit larger thing right here, and then this is going to make cleaning these types of areas a lot easier, and it's going to make cleaning this entire roof up in here easier also. The rough texture that's on this somehow just tends to just hold on to the dirt. So you can see this right here. So you can see how dirty this thing really is. And it just holds the dust everywhere. Look at that right there. Look at how much. So it's not, you know, just about buying parts and putting parts on. Sometimes all you got to do is just get a nice cleaning on everything and a few little parts, and it feels like you're driving a brand new truck in no time at all. So I'm going to get this all looking nice and pretty, and then I'll be back with some more helpful handy hints, okay? Now, I never showed you what the brushes were used for. That's to get into nooks and crannies like this. So I'll just spray it up, clean both sides. You also have some vents right here, and we've got some vents right here. So that is what your brush is for. Gauge cluster is all cleaned up and looking nice. We're ready to install it. Now don't forget that you had this little screw on the back, not all years, but most. And we'll need to take that off in order to install this one little guy here. And don't forget you got these two light bulbs to install here. And I've installed all of the LED lights into the back of our gauges here. Now these are polarity sensitive, so it wants the positive and the negative on a specific side, and it's a bit difficult to tell which is which on the light bulbs. So all we're going to need to do is just go ahead and put it in, not screw it in, but I'll kind of gently put it up in there, and I'll connect this connector. I'll connect the battery, turn on the lights, we'll see who's working, who's not. If anybody's not working, all I got to do is pop this back out, swap the light bulb around like that, and then I've switched the polarities, and then it's ready to go back in, and then it should work. So we'll test all that stuff before we screw it all back in. When you put your gauge cluster in, it's a little bit of an odd deal. Now, these ears right here, they're on the outside of the metal here. But this part here, it kind of tucks behind. So you got to kind of put it in like this, and then you got to tuck it in behind here on the bottom and on the top right here too. So you kind of got to do something like the bottom tucked in. Now I get it down far enough. Now I can tuck in the top. Now, if you remember, this ear on the side right here broke. And if I would have glued it on when this was disassembled and I didn't have it exactly right, when I tried to put it back in, it would simply break off. So what we're going to do is we're going to put these 3 screws on the ears that are still sticking up. Then we can go ahead and put our broken piece on. and I'll get just a little bit of glue on both sides of this. Then I can put it on, and then I know it's in the right spot, and we're all good to go. Almost ready to put the dash pad in. I just got to prep it up a little bit more. I want to make sure that I get new foam right here and right here so that I don't have any of my cold or hot air escaping and I get all of it right on me. You can pick this stuff up anywhere. This is just the regular stuff that you get at Home Depot or wherever that seals up your doors and windows. So make sure you get this on here so that you get your air conditioning to work at full volume. So I've installed my vents here in this one piece right on here. If you flip this over, you'll see on the other side how these attach right here. Now I've already got a video on how to install these, so I'm not going to get into every little detail, but a quickie is that you see the clips right here. You want to acknowledge where they're at and acknowledge where all of these slots are at. So when we put it on up here, we'll have it back a bit and we'll make sure every clip is getting tucked into the slot. Then we'll go ahead and move it forward, then we can get all of our screws on and everything. So a little something like this. All right, there we go. All right. I'll go ahead and I'll screw things down on this side first, then I'll go ahead and take over the other side. And you have to be paying attention to where all of these go. So let me get this set up and then I'll show you what I mean on that other side. Now, installing our gauge cluster face right here, I want to point out a couple of different things. One thing I want you to do is notice where all of the little screw holes are going to go, okay? And then I want to make sure you've got a receptacle for that on the dash. So you have these little slip nuts right here. They'll break and fall off over the years. So you want to make sure that they're in there. On your dash pad right here, a lot of times I'll put them up here in the corner, okay? And then you got to make sure there's one down here also, and you got one here, and you have one here. So I've got that all set up. I've ordered the correct black screws that go in there because this is a black face. So that's going to look proper. Another thing I want you to notice is right up here on your gauge cluster, these ears that are sticking out right here, they're what is going to go ahead and go in these two holes right here. So you have to make sure that the screws are long enough. You have to make sure that these holes, a lot of times when you get new dash pads, it won't have these holes in it right here and here and here. So you'll have to make sure that you get those in the right spot and carefully drill them out without doing any damage. Then when we're loading this in, you're going to need to bring your gear selector down. You probably want to have your steering column down. And I don't have all the bolts in this. I just have some in there. And so I can just pick it up a little bit in order to help me install this like this. So, and I suppose this is easier to do without a steering column in there, but it is doable with the steering column in there or dropping it. So I'll just take a little bit of extra time and energy here to do it like this. All right, so I took care of all of my radio wires when I'm doing this, and you got to make sure they're behind there. Obviously, I didn't do that, so we'll get those back behind there. I also want to make sure that my vent right here, remember you got that air conditioning plenum back there, so you got to make sure this is making a good contact on there all at the same time. So just take a minute or two, and we'll get it all set up. Everything is in and it's looking good. Now I ain't gonna lie to you, it took quite a bit of time to line up all those little screws. Make sure you get yourself an awl and poke it through each one of the holes and get a good lineup, because it's a little bit of a tough thing, so it's gonna take you a minute. Now I can go ahead and install my stereo. When I'm doing something like this, I wanna think about a couple different things. For instance, this has a speaker on it, so I went ahead and routed it right up here, ran it down, ran it across. It's coming out right here, so now I can use that. And I want to do that with all my wires and make sure they're not against anything that's moving, sharp, hot, etc., etc., etc. Now you saw me put this plenum in before. I should have, because I'm going to need that out in order to get behind here and get that on in there. So let's see what it looks like. So next I'll put this piece on right here. Now when I put this piece on, this little hole right here, that's for this plenum down here. So you'll put that on, you'll line it up here, because this can move back and forth a little bit. You'll get that screw on. After these are on, you can put this on. After those are on, you can slide this rubber that's at the top of the steering column down. That seals that up better. And then I'll get the glove box on too. So, looking good. Getting ready to put the door panel on, but I just want to show you a few things first. Now I already put this rubber on so you can see what it looked like on, but how it goes on is really simple. It just has these clips right here and it simply slips on. So you would just put it here, you'd make sure that it was lined up properly, and then you just go ahead and slide it on. Nice and easy. Next we'll go ahead and put this piece on. Now one of the things you want to notice about this is that this stud right here is only plastic. So when we put this on, we have to be very careful on how we do it. We can't over tighten it or it's going to break. So what you're going to want to do is you just get these funny little nuts that come with these and put it on there, finger tight, and then just use something like this. Don't use a ratchet or a wrench or anything. You want to have something that is nice and light, and I'm just feeling this, and when it's reasonably tight, that's it, and we're all ready. Any more and you're going to break that thing. Another thing that I like to do is get these little guys right here, because they typically break when you try to take the door off. So you see this right here? Now how this installs is, you can see it's got kind of like this little slot right here. So what you do is you just put in one edges of that slot there, and then you just twist it like a nut. And there you go, it's stuck on there. So that's all good to go. The next thing we're going to do is put some foam right here. And the reason that we're doing that is because if you don't put it on, sometimes you'll get kind of rattly noises out of your doors. So we'll put this on right here, cut it in the right length, and then we're all ready to install. So let's take a look at the outside and see what we want to do here. Now we're not going to put this strap on until the panel is on, because the bolts that go through here go straight into the door, not the panel. Here you can see this switch is looking pretty good, but our old switch was looking pretty tired in this slot right here. This is for the windows, this is for the door locks. And like I mentioned before, I'm not taking this project and just throwing every part at it. We're trying to be more strategic and have more efficient use of our cash so we can get the least expensive bang for our buck. So all I did was just get the one switch. Now how these install is there's just these little clips right here on the side. So normally all you got to do is just put it in there, put some pressure on the back side so that it'll pop in like that. That's all looking good. Now here, take a look at this. This is pretty standard. The little elastic here just gets worn out or breaks altogether. So what I've done is just simply got some string. This is just what I happen to have around. I suppose something a little bit smaller would have been better, but I went ahead and looped it through here. It loops all the way through here and the other edge. It comes out the back side here, and then you got these little slots. You can get it, and then I can get this here and glue it down and make sure it's all stable. So when you're building cars, it's basically obstacle, overcome, obstacle, overcome. So it doesn't make any difference what you run into, there's always a solution. So we're gonna find every single one of them, and we're gonna get this back on the road. Before you put your door panel on, get a little bit prepping on this too. It hasn't been off in a long time, and all the grease is either old or just straight up dried off. So we're going to lube up our latch on the outside and on the inside here. We'll go ahead and lube up this. You've got the window channel at the very bottom. Now there's also a channel that is welded onto the inside of the door right in here, and you're going to want to get grease in that channel too. Your pivot joints. Point is, just grease everything up really good. Make sure your wires aren't going to be rubbing on any sharp metal, and they're all nice and neat. And then we can go ahead and attach this right here. This is our window up and down, and it's a little tough to see those little holes. There we go. So I put a little bit of dielectric grease on these before I did this. Dielectric grease is good. It keeps things from corroding and keeps the electric conductivity up. And when I have to take this off in the future, it'll be easier to do. So that's all set. So right here, you can see these things get stuck in here sometimes. So I'll need to get that out of there. I'm going to take this right here and I'm going to move this up out of my way. I'm going to make sure my glass is all the way down. I'll take my door lock right here and I'll pop it all the way up. I want to have my, I forget what these are called, that screw on there, because if I have this I can line it up a lot easier, and you have to make sure that you pull your handle here right through the door like this. Okay, see how much easier that is there? Now I can screw this on so that this is lined up. All right, should you snap down? Okay, you hear that? You can normally tell when the clip clips into place. So that's all good to go. Now, you remember these little Christmas trees that are on the back that pop into the holes? We'll go ahead and got those knocked in. And now I can put my screws in the bottom here. And my door panel's all ready to go pretty much. Well, just got to put this piece here in, and we'll put this piece in, then we'll be ready to go.
Okay, roll it.
All right. So this looked pretty good. We just cleaned this up. I'm going to put it right back on. You just got to slide it on right like that. And you're good to go. I'll use some black screws on that because the background is black. We got to get this strap on right here. Now this strap technically would come with these on the end, and that just lends a lot of support to the end of the strap here. There's one for both sides. These get lost over the years, pretty common. So if that happens to you, not a real big deal. You can just get a large washer, and I suppose it's really not that difficult to make a piece like that. And these will typically go on with 1/4-20 screws, although over the years people put all kinds of things on here, so you may not have the 1/4-20, but something will fit in there. So we'll get these on. And then you have your little chrome pieces to go on top of these and look all nice and decorative. I'm having trouble lining this one up, so you just give me a minute, will you? Now, before I even started this project, I took all the new carpet out, I unwrapped it, and I laid it in the hot sun. This way it'll kind of even out and it'll get the wrinkles out and things like that and be easier to mold in. And then actually when we were working on it, I went ahead and put the carpet in, put some blankets on top, and then when we're working with the wiring and things like that, it lets the carpet kind of get into all of the nooks and crannies and mold in better. I took it back out because now we're going to go ahead and put in the new carpeting, and we'll be using spray glue, and I don't want the spray glue to be spilling over onto any of my other carpet. So of course we took the old carpet out, we cleaned this up as much as possible, and our old sound deadening on here is really in good shape, so we're just going to leave it in there. And but we're going to make sure that it's good and clean, because if it's not, our glue is not going to stick well. When I'm applying things with glue, well, let me climb inside and I'll show you. Now this insulation right here, I didn't like it. It was a bit too matted and such, so I'm going to put a new piece on this. Now when I do something like that, what I want to do is put glue on both sides, but we want to get crazy with our glue. We want to be nice and efficient with it. So first, what we're going to be doing is hitting this piece here. Pretty reasonable amount of glue. Then what we're going to do is put some glue on this side, but we're not going to do the whole entire thing. If I was to do this and put it on top, then it'd stick really well, and I probably wouldn't be able to manipulate it at any. So I can do this, and then we'll fold this back, and we'll go ahead and stick glue on. Then we'll put this down, a little more glue. And this way you can do it in a nice controlled manner. I'll show you how to do the carpeting too in just a bit. It's basically the same thing. You just need to start in the center and work your way out. But I'll be back in a bit to show you that, okay? Now I can put my tub on. In order to make it easier, I took off the brackets that were right here, and sometimes you'll find little brackets down here in your belt. So get all that out of your way and make it easier for you. Put it on here before you get any glue. Make sure that it is tucking all the way to this corner and all the way to this corner or edge. And then after you're sure you have it where you want it, then what you're going to do is put your knees right there so it doesn't move anywhere. Now we can pull this back and we can go ahead and spray glue on both sides, and then we'll fold this on, and then we'll try to even out any wrinkles or anything that might be in there. So I'm spraying my tub and I'm spraying the inside of my carpet here. Now I'm not doing the entire thing, I'm pretty much just getting this one side first and making sure that it's good, and then I'll do the top and edges. If you spray glue on everything all at once, then you gotta get all the wrinkles out at all at once. Everything has to be exactly in the right spot. So just get the one section good first and then move on to your next section. Now, not all of your carpet is going to need to be glued down. This here is an example of that, because in the back there's a strip that holds it down, in the front there's a strip that holds it down. On the sides right here it has those panels going down that'll hold it down. Now sometimes maybe around the tubs right around here you'd have to put some glue. If that's possible, then just, you know, fold it back some, shoot the glue on both sides just like we did everything else, and then go ahead and put it down. When you put it down, if you've got something dog-earing up on you, something like this, just get a little bit of glue and then just get some weight on it. Again, you don't have to do it on the back because the strip goes here. I'm getting ready to put this piece here on. Now, first thing I want you to do is notice that we had this all nice and bagged specifically. A lot of times when you're taking these things apart, you're thinking, I'm just going to get all the screws and just put them all together, all the screws, what have you. But the problem is you run into is that they're very specific a lot of times. These are really long. So if I had this bag filled with 100 screws, I'd have to sift through everything. Having it bagged individually is going to save you time. The next trick we're going to have is how do we find the holes where the screws go. So you just get yourself a pointy thing and all, and you just simply do that. Now I got a really good feel for where the hole is, and when I put my screw in, it's going to be a lot easier to line everybody up. So I'm going to get this taken care of, and then I'll show you what to do on the carpeting in the front. All right, now this carpet has been sitting here as long as we can. If you give it a lot of time and there's some heat from the sun coming down on it, it'll just mold in better and better and better. But we are out of time and I got to finish this up. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking our carpet here, and I'm going to get to the middle here, okay? Now this is what we don't want to happen. We don't want the carpet to be pulled too far to the side here, okay? Because if it doesn't get into this little nook and cranny right here, what's going to happen over the years is it's going to wear thin right here, it's going to split and wear out. So we have to make sure that this is well contacted in there. How we're going to do that is just simply by taking this back as far as we can, and then we're going to spray adhesive not only on the tub here but on the carpet too. You want to do both sides, and I'm getting a pretty reasonable amount down because I still want it to be kind of wet, if you will, when I lay it down, because then I can maneuver it some. If it sticks too fast and furious on me, then I won't be able to get it in position good. So I'm just going to work this a little bit more until I'm comfortable that everybody's okay. Maybe I'll put a little bit more glue here or there, but I'm not going to put glue in this section right here, partly because I don't need to really, and partly because we've got this one wire here. Now, your truck probably doesn't have this. If it does have this, it's just your indicator to tell you that your seatbelt's not buckled. So if I was to glue this down, then I wouldn't be able to get this in here. How I'm going to get this out is after I find the hole where the seatbelt goes, then I'll simply put this right back through, put the seatbelt on, connect it up, and we're all good. So just give me a minute here, and I'll be right back and show you what comes up next. Okay, so I almost forgot to talk about these right here where I've cut in for the shifter, and right here is the center console. So what I did is I took the old carpet and I laid it right on top. I made sure that it was square, left, right, etc., etc. And then I went ahead and cut these holes out. Now when I did that, I cut these as small as possible. I cut these a lot smaller than was original. And then I laid it on top. Then I was able to tailor it better and get a nice clean section here. So on the original carpet, this hole is really big, but it's just not necessary. You can see this bracket in the front that holds on to the cover that goes on here, the little brackets in the back. So if I would have cut this out too big, then it would have been exposed over that cover that goes on there. These right here you don't have to worry about as much because your thing's a bit bigger, but still the moral of the story stays the same. You always start small and then work your way bigger to be on the safe side. Now that this carpet's all down, I can go ahead and find all the holes that are necessary for the seat and the seat belts. Now what you're going to do is just get an awl. If you don't have an awl, you can use a skinny punch. You can use a small screwdriver, what have you. And sometimes you can get lucky and you can find them in the top, but a lot of times you can't. So all you got to do is go underneath. You'll find a nut, more than likely, that is welded on there, and all you got to do is just push the awl right through the bottom. So now I know where that one's at. And you know, I could just make a magic marker on this and leave it at that, but what I normally like to do is get as many awls as I can find, or as many pokey things as I can find, and I'll actually put them in and help hold the carpet in place, because sometimes when you're doing this you'll shuffle it around or whatever, so they'll just kind of help keep it in place and make things easier to find. Okay, so I found that one from the top, so that one's easy to go. So I'm just going to go ahead and find all the rest of these. Then I'll take my torch and I'll take an old socket that I don't like. I'll heat it up just like you saw me doing the how-to video earlier, and I'll just go ahead and I'll burn these guys out so that I don't have any frayed ends I have to worry about coming apart in the future. So just give me a little bit with this, and we're going to be pretty quick to putting in our upholstery and being all done, so stay tuned. Alright, so I really got to tell you that this is just a lot easier way to do it. It might look on camera that it's a bit slow and cumbersome, but I did all these holes in like 5 minutes. And one of the things you got to remember on this is that it's not just the carpeting on the top, it's all that jute that's on the bottom, all that sound deadening stuff, and it's really thick and it's really tough to get out of there. So if I was to use a razor on this, it'd probably take me 5 minutes each hole. I'd probably have to try to dig it out from the top and the bottom. I'd be getting a lot of dust bunnies and stuff like that. So this is just unequivocally the easiest way, the fastest way to do this. Okay, so we went over to Eddie, our buddy Eddie, over at American Auto Upholstery here in Corona, and we had him do these seats for him. We gave him the upholstery to put on, and he just did it for us because we got such a time crunch going on. And these are a little bit more difficult than some of the other seats that you've seen me do in some of my other videos. Right in here and right here, you have to attach hog rings to that and get this really nice and taut into this groove right here. So these are a bit more difficult to do too. That's another reason we gave them to Eddie. Now bench seats aren't that big of a deal. Really, we could have pulled this one off because you just slip it on like a sheet cover really. But again, we got a time crunch going. So thanks, Eddie. We really appreciate it. So with our seat holes here all perfectly punched out, if you will, it's really easy to set your seat in there and get everything lined up. Okay, I cannot find the hole that goes right here. I've been stabbing this for half an hour and I can't find it. I took the tape measure and I figured, okay, it's about 1 inch in front of the tub and it's 6.5 inches from, I can't find it. So, and I can't poke it through the bottom on these Blazers. They have this like enclosed cage nut that you can't poke the hole through. So, you know, what we're going to do is simply put the seat in, go ahead and lay it down, see exactly where the hole goes through, then punch that in, and then we're done. Can you smell that? It's that new car smell. So we didn't spend a lot of money on this. We got a couple of hours in it. Sure, it's going to take a couple of hours. We got our dash on here. It's all new. When we had it off, we took care of gauges. We got our lights set up. We got our air conditioning vents working and looking good again. We cleaned up a lot of stuff. We painted a few things. On our door panels here, we went ahead and we shampooed the carpet at the bottom of the door. We cleaned up the plastic and we just put a few trim pieces on, and you can see it basically looks brand new now. And you can see we got a brand new radio in here. It's specifically made just for this. The old carpet had some you know, some tears in it, the boot prints. It was definitely worn out. Now with the new carpet in there, it really aids to the new car smell that the truck has now. You know, it's looking smashing. It really does smell like a new car, and it feels like a new car, really. So, you know, again, this was a compilation of a bunch of different videos. If you go on our channel and you subscribe, you'll see how to reupholster your seats, how to do carpeting, how to do the dash pad and stuff. What we wanted to do is show you, if you put all of those together in one thing, this is what your accomplishment is. This is the accomplishment we want for you. We want your truck to be nice and comfortable and plush and cool and comfortable, so you can drive it down the road with the confidence and the pleasure that you should be. You make sure you stay tuned to Instagram and Facebook, because we got some cool stuff on that too, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, because if you don't, your truck is going to be ugly forever. We'll see you on the road, man.